She tried to steal my husband at his own job, right under my nose. I couldn't confront her without wrecking his career, so I decided to play dumb. I called HR and pretended to be an offended customer. This is the story of how I used corporate S own rulebook to take down my husband's relentlessly flirty coworker. My husband, who we'll call Mark, is one of the good ones. Seriously. He S-kind, works incredibly hard, and has this quiet integrity that I fell for years ago. We've built a great life together, based on trust, respect, and a ton of laughter. He'd been at his company, a huge national firm with a very rigid corporate ladder, for about 5 years. He loved his work, was on track for a big promotion he'd been grinding for, and life was pretty much exactly what we planned. It was stable, happy, and ours. And then Jessica joined his team. From day one, it was obvious she played by a different set of rules. She was loud when the office was quiet, way too casual for a place that lived and breathed professionalism, and just carried herself like the rules didn't apply to her. Since Mark was the team lead on a major project, he was told to get her up to speed. At first, he just called her enthusiastic and a real go-getter. I was just happy he had a new teammate who seemed eager to help out. Oh, how naive that was. Her enthusiasm quickly turned into something else entirely. It started small, the way these things always do. A hand that lingered a little too long on his arm in a meeting. A comment about how his wife Me must be so lucky. He'd come home and tell me about these little moments, usually with a confused shrug. Jessica's a bit much, he'd say, trying to laugh it off. Neither of us took it seriously. We were solid. We figured she was just an over-the-top person who didn't get professional boundaries and would eventually read the room. That was our first mistake. She didn't tone it down. She dialed it way, way up. The little moments started stacking up until they formed a pattern we couldn't ignore. Her comments got more pointed, her actions more deliberate. Mark keeps a framed photo of us from our wedding on his desk. One afternoon, he saw her pick it up when she thought he wasn't looking. She just stared at it, then put it down with this tiny, dramatic sigh. When he asked her if everything was okay, she just beamed at him and said, "Oh, nothing. Just admiring the beautiful bride. She's a lucky, lucky woman." The way she said it, dripping with fake sweetness but sharp underneath, made the hairs on his arms stand up. Then came the emails. They were always about work, but she'd sprinkle in personal lines that were just off. "Hope you have a great night," with a winky face, which is completely bizarre in their corporate world. Or she'd message him at 10 p.m. with a work question that could have easily waited until morning, adding, "Sorry to bother you so late, just couldn't sleep and you were on my mind." Mark, being a total professional, kept his replies short, polite, and strictly about work. He never once engaged with her flirting, and because we have a completely transparent marriage, he showed me everything. He'd just set his jaw and ask me, "Can you believe this? What am I even supposed to do?" And that was the real problem. There was nothing he could do. This is where the frustration really started to boil. If you looked at any one thing she did, it was easy to dismiss. A winky face? A late-night email? She could just play innocent and say she was being friendly. Mark knew that if he went to his manager, who was already chummy with Jessica, he'd be the one accused of causing drama. A man complaining about a woman's advances, especially when she's a new and popular, can get twisted around so easily. He could be labeled as not a team player. With his huge promotion hanging in the balance, a formal complaint felt like career suicide. It was his word against hers, and she was an expert at playing the bubbly, innocent newcomer. Things finally exploded at the company's annual summer picnic. It was a family event, so I went with Mark, excited to finally put some faces to the names I'd heard for years. I knew Jessica would be there, and part of me hoped that once she saw us together as a real couple, she'd finally get the hint and back off. I was so wrong. Seeing me there didn't stop her. It fueled her. It was like I was a rival in a game she was dead set on winning. She walked right up to our picnic blanket holding 2 beers, wearing shorts that were barely there, and a top that left nothing to the imagination. Let me be clear. I don't judge what other women wear, but this was a corporate family event, and her outfit was a calculated choice. "Mark," she squealed, ignoring me completely. "I brought you a beer. They have your favorite." Mark stood up, ever the gentleman. "Oh, Jessica, thank you, but you didn't have to. This is my wife," he said, gesturing to me. Her eyes finally landed on me, her smile tightening just a bit. "Oh, of course, the famous wife. So nice to finally meet you. Mark talks about you sometimes." That little dig sometimes was so perfectly petty. Anyone else would have missed it, but I heard it, and I knew exactly what she was doing. She was relentless all afternoon. She would accidentally trip near Mark so he'd have to catch her. She'd bring up inside jokes from work, laughing way too loud and touching his arm, creating this little bubble around them that I wasn't a part of. But the most brazen moment came during a game of volleyball. She made sure she was right next to Mark, and after one good play, she threw her arms around his neck in a full-on hug that went on for way, way too long. I just stood on the sidelines, my stomach twisting. Mark was so obviously uncomfortable, trying to gently push her away without making a scene. He caught my eye over her shoulder, his face a mask of apology and frustration. The drive home was dead, silent. I wasn't mad at him. I was furious at her. "She has to be stopped," I finally said. "I know," Mark sighed, his hands gripping the steering wheel. "But how? If I go to HR, what do I say? My coworker hugged me too long? She sends me winky faces? They'll think I'm crazy. Everything she does has plausible deniability. She'll just claim I'm misinterpreting her friendliness, and suddenly I'm the one creating a hostile work environment." He was right. She had engineered her harassment perfectly. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. Confronting her directly was out. His boss was useless, and a formal HR complaint was a gamble he couldn't afford. We felt trapped. For weeks, I just simmered with anger while my husband grew more and more stressed. He started dreading his job. She was poisoning his career and our lives. I knew if I didn't do something, she could genuinely ruin his future. And that S when my protective instincts kicked in. If the front door was locked, I was going to find a back door. The idea came to me on a random Tuesday night. Mark was on a late conference call, and I was half listening from the kitchen while he used his customer service voice, that polished, super polite tone he uses with clients. He was talking to a frustrated customer, and as part of his script, I heard him say the magic words: "Ma'am, I want to assure you that this call is being recorded for quality assurance and training purposes." My head snapped up. Recorded for quality assurance. The phrase just echoed in my head. The gears started turning. The company recorded customer calls. They had a formal process for customer complaints. And they took their public image very seriously, probably more seriously than internal employee spats. A customer complaint would get documented. It would be investigated. It wouldn't be Mark's word against Jessica's. It would be the word of an unbiased customer. And Jessica's role? She was on those same client-facing calls. The plan just clicked into place, this beautiful, intricate web. What if a customer had a really bad interaction with Jessica? Not just about a project, but something personal. What if a female customer felt Jessica was being unprofessional or even flirty with her husband, who was also on the call? It was perfect. I wouldn't be me, Mark's wife. I'd be Sarah, a concerned client. I wouldn't be complaining about a pattern of harassment against an employee. I'd be filing a single formal complaint about an inappropriate incident that made me, the client, uncomfortable. Look, I knew this was a huge risk. Making a false report is a big deal, and if I got caught, I could get Mark fired. But I felt the core of my complaint wasn't false at all. Her behavior was inappropriate and unprofessional. I was just repackaging the truth in a way the corporate machine was built to understand. She was playing a game with no rules, leaving us with no moves. So I decided to join her game, but I was going to use their own rulebook against them. I spent 2 days planning. I went on their website and found the toll-free number for customer relations. I read their mission statement, all the corporate buzzwords about integrity and professionalism. I was going to hold them to every single word. I wrote a script. I invented a fake company, a plausible project number, and a whole scenario. I would be Sarah Peters, a project manager. I practiced in the mirror, making my voice sound shaken but still professional. I wasn't a jealous wife. I was a concerned client reporting an employee's lapse in judgment. The distinction was everything. The day I made the call, my heart was hammering. I waited until Mark was out for lunch. I sat in our office, script laid out, hands shaking. The thought of Mark's defeated face at that picnic was all the motivation I needed. I dialed. "Thank you for calling corporate relations. This is Brenda. How can I help you?" Showtime. I took a deep breath. "Hello, Brenda," I started, making my voice sound a little flustered. "My name is Sarah Peters. I hope I'm in the right place, but I had a very uncomfortable interaction with one of your employees, and I felt I had to report it." "I'm very sorry to hear that, Ms. Peters," Brenda said, her tone instantly serious. "You've absolutely come to the right place. Can you tell me what happened?" "Yes," I said, pausing for effect. "I'm a project manager with the Sterling Group. We were on a conference call this morning with one of your team members, a woman named Jessica. I don't have her last name, but she's on Mark's team in the regional office. I made sure to drop Mark's name to point them in the right direction." "I see," Brenda said, and I heard the click-clack of a keyboard. "Please, continue." "Well, the call itself was about a scheduling issue, which is fine. But Jessica's tone was just so unprofessional. She kept making these personal comments directed at my husband, David, who was also on the line. Frankly, it was deeply unsettling." "Can you give me an example, Ms. Peters?" she asked. "Yes," I said, glancing at my script full of Jessica's greatest hits. At one point, my husband was explaining a technical problem, and she cut in with, "Oh, David, you always sound so smart when you explain things. Your wife is a lucky woman." The way she said it was so coy, and I'm right there on the call. A few minutes later, she said, "Well, David, if you ever need to work late to figure this out, just let me know. I'm always available. The insinuation was completely inappropriate for a professional call with a client. It was embarrassing and reflected poorly on your company. I made sure to frame it as a business problem. "We spend a lot of money with your firm," I said, letting my voice harden. "And we expect a certain level of professional conduct. This kind of behavior makes me question the integrity of the whole team." There was a pause, then just the sound of furious typing. "Ms. Peters," Brenda said, her voice grave, "thank you for bringing this to our attention. This is not the standard of conduct we expect. Your complaint is being taken very seriously, and I am escalating it for an immediate review. This call has been logged." "Thank you, Brenda," I said, letting relief flood my voice. That's all I wanted. I hung up. The silence rushed back in. My heart was still pounding, but a slow, triumphant smile spread across my face. I had planted the seed. Now, I just had to wait. I didn't tell Mark what I'd done. I couldn't. Not yet. 2 days passed. It was agony. Then, on Thursday, he came home looking completely bewildered. He dropped his bag and just stared at me. "You are not going to believe what happened today." I braced myself, playing dumb. "What is it? Is everything okay?" "It's Jessica," he said, shaking his head. "She was called into a 2-hour meeting with our regional HR manager and our boss. The rumor is a formal harassment complaint was filed against her by a client." I put my hand over my mouth, faking shock. "No way. Someone actually did it?" "Yes, and corporate is taking it super seriously. My boss is in hot water for letting professional standards slip. They're doing a full review and pulling the recordings of all of Jessica's client calls for the last 3 months." A wave of cold, delicious satisfaction washed over me. It was working even better than I'd planned. My one complaint had given them the reason they needed to dig into everything else. Over the next week, the office was buzzing. Jessica was apparently a wreck. She was grilled by HR, not just about my call, but about her conduct on other calls they now had recordings of. My fabricated complaint had opened the floodgates to all her actual recorded transgressions. She had nowhere to hide. About a week and a half after my phone call, the final verdict came down. Mark walked in the door, and for the first time in months he looked light. "She's gone," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Gone? Like, fired?" "Not technically," he explained. "They gave her a choice. Be terminated for gross professional misconduct or accept a reassignment. The new job is a dead-end data entry position in a branch 3 states away. No client contact, no teams." She took the reassignment and was gone that afternoon. The cloud over Mark's office vanished instantly. That night, I finally told Mark everything. He just stared at me, his eyes wide. When I finished, he was quiet for a second, and then he just started laughing. A deep, relieved belly laugh. He pulled me into a huge hug. "You are absolutely terrifying," he whispered into my hair, "and I have never loved you more." Some people might say what I did was dishonest. And maybe it was. I made up a name and a specific event. But her campaign against my husband's career and our peace of mind was very, very real. The system wasn't set up to stop someone like her until it was forced to. I just gave it a push using the only language it understands: corporate liability. I know my plan was incredibly risky and could have blown up in my face, but I felt backed into a corner. In the end, we got our peace back. Mark got his promotion a few months later, and we never heard from Jessica again. So, what do you think? Was this a calculated, necessary move, or did I cross a line? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you would have done. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about people getting exactly what they deserve. Thanks for listening.